Welcome to Wild and Finally Fucking Free, the show for disruptors, rebels, and revolutionaries who know they're here to change the damn world. I'm Kylie Patchett, your voice and visibility catalyst, and here we dive into unapologetic truth, magnetic messaging, and visibility that actually feels good in your body, your bones, and your business. We share the stories of the out-of-the-box, neuro-sparkly, creative, witchy wild ones, rewriting how we live, love, learn, and lead. This isn't about being louder. It's about being rooted, resonant, and regulated so you can be real, raw, and ready to roar. If you're done contorting yourself to fit the mold and you're ready to own your voice, your power, and your place in the revolution, welcome home. Let's dive in. Hi friends, this is part 2 of a little mini series on the podcast introducing you to the different visibility or voice and visibility patterns of learned limitation. If you haven't already listened to the first part of this series, that's basically where I kind of set out the rules of reality around here, and also the difference between when your wild woman is running the business bus, which then creates a soul-fueled sustainable version of success, versus when these core fears are running the show. And I also want to introduce them through the lens of, again, just reiterating what I said in the first part, which is these are learned limitations. They are actually not the truth of who you are. So I don't want you to kind of feel over-identified with them. These are just, they're patterns of behavior. That's the best way that I can describe it. We will all have threads of every single one of these 9. Now, if you're into human design, you will probably notice that there's a bit of a pattern with the conditioning that can happen when a center in human design is either open or undefined. Lines up with these patterns. I don't want to get into the human design too much of it because I don't want this system to depend on you having a huge body of knowledge on something else if you don't already. You don't need to understand where it comes from. And actually this system I created like 10 years ago, and it's layered with many different modalities, and human design is just the latest like apple strudel layer upon layer upon layer. So yeah, keep that in mind. So you are most likely going to have threads of all 9 of these, but 1 or 2 of them will be what I call your Achilles heel. Now, your Achilles heel in voice and visibility is just the pattern that rises to the surface when you are aiming to expand how many people see, hear, and recognize you and your work. Incredibly important, because I mostly work with people that would identify as paradigm shifters, rebels, and revolutionaries, which means that by definition, we are pioneering. We're pioneering new ways of doing business, new ways of offering and marketing ourselves, and also new ways of living, loving, learning, leading in our work. We are the ones that are here saying, you know what, this is not working. The current system of doing this is not working. Here is a different way of doing it. It also means by definition that it's kind of like, people think it's impossible. And then they make fun of people that are right at the forefront of change. And then finally people are like, oh yeah, of course. And I always kind of liken it to the once upon a time, you used to have to be put in jail if you thought that the world was round. So for us paradigm shifters, there's always going to be an edge where potentially we might be thought of as a little bit cray-cray. So bear with me. As I am speaking through all of these, you can kind of do a little bit of a self kind of check-in. Does that feel true to me? And I will guarantee, there were some people in Raw Live, I have to say, that were like, I feel like I'm all of them. But as we went through, 1 or 2 became really clear that they were like the current Achilles heel. The other thing I will say, is that I find that I have 2 main patterns of overpreneur that I have been talking about on the podcast for a while. Is one of them. The second one is the Blurpreneur, and I'll talk to that when we get to it. But we'll just do these 9 in 2 separate parts. So this is going to be a 3-part series. I was going to try and do it quickly, but I cannot do this quickly because I need for you to understand the foundations of it. Okay, so we're going to start at the top. This is a Dreampreneur. Now, it was very interesting to me. Of the people that have responded to the quiz that we have that goes with this kind of system, which you can get at kyliepatchett.com/quiz, the quiz, actually, the results that I can see. So there's about, I think there's, I don't know, more. Well, there was 180 responses last time I looked, and I know there's been more come through my email. So let's say around about 200 people. Interesting. These top two were the highest ones. So Dreampreneur and Shinepreneur. So head and ajna, if you kind of know the, human design thing. So the Dreampreneur is someone who has their head in the clouds. They really love ideating. They're big visionary thinkers. And they're driven by this core fear of success. So when I meet someone who is showing like Dreampreneur patterns, they're often someone who's got this equation in their head that means actually deciding on one idea to make manifest and focus on. Number one, stops me from ideating, which is kind of like where I naturally want to sit, right? Because that's fun, that's juicy. And it's like planning, but not doing. But that means something will cost me. So the fear of success is like, this is going to cost me either my family time or my freedom or my identity. Or a lot of Dreampreneurs believe that if more people, like if they choose one thing and more people get to know them, there's a lot of responsibility behind that. The nervous system imprint for this one is inspiration overload equals safety. Choosing one thing, because the energy of the Dreampreneur is like the energy is up here in the clouds, but I'm not choosing something to make manifest. I'm not grounding anything in. I'm like getting carried away with almost the mental masturbation of ideating, but actually I won't back myself enough to bring it down here. She's learned that narrowing her focus feels like something precious is going to be lost. And she chases clarity and thinking about it and planning. And these are the people that have got notebooks and notebooks full of like big brain dumps. And then they're just on to the next brain dump. Like there's no kind of putting it into action. She's not chasing clarity because she's uncommitted. She's chasing clarity because to her, keeping possibilities open and up here in the ether is actually more safe than choosing something and bringing it down into reality. So she might say things like, I've got millions of ideas, but none of them feel solid enough. I'm waiting for the right download. I'm waiting for the perfect clarity before speaking. Or this is the all or nothing of the Dreampreneur. I'm launching 5 things at once, and so my energy is so scattered, no one has any fucking idea what I'm doing. Or I can't choose one, so I'm not going to say anything at all. So that's the Dreampreneur. Second one, Shinepreneur. So I always think about this person as a shiny object chaser. And you can literally, like, you're having a conversation with someone who has got a Shinepreneur part up, and they're like, oh, just hang on a minute. Oh, and just hang on. And it's like you can't get them to focus in the here and now. She chases clarity and chasing the next big idea. There's a fear underneath this of rejection. So choosing something and choosing to anchor into her internal knowing of what her next step is, that feels incredibly unsafe. So rather than checking in, she will look out and go, oh, I need to try that strategy. Oh, I need to, change my bread colors. Oh, I need to do this. So she's afraid that being stuck in her head and over-analyzing and never landing on the right opinion means she'll never have clarity. And if she doesn't have clarity, she won't be trusted, chosen, and credible. So that's the kind of rules of reality that she's running on. So I fear rejection, and so I will create a pattern where I never actually back myself, because to back myself and then put myself out there and be rejected is the worst fear possible. So her nervous system imprint is figuring out equals survival, and analysis, overthinking, collecting other people's perspectives. So never actually trusting her felt sense. Likes to, kind of similar to the Dreampreneur energy, often kind of scattered up in the ether rather than in her body. Those things are the safety mechanisms, right? So the collecting other people's perspectives. So it'll be the client that's like, we're talking about all of the, and we're in a session be like, okay, so what feels like the most, what feels like the most juicy for you, or what feels like the most alive for you, or whatever. And they might be able to check in and actually have a felt sense of that. And then what happens afterwards is they'll go and ask their husband, their best friend, 58 clients, all of the opinions. It's almost like I need to outsource my decision-making to you. because I don't actually have any surety about my own safety to make the expert. She will often, there's so many of these anti-entrepreneurs where this happens, but every time I press publish, I spiral, wondering if I said too much, often under charges because they don't actually fully kind of anchor into their own brilliance. She often shifts her message. She deletes the boldest lines because she doesn't want to be rejected, right? So there's a really big, like, I don't want to rock the boat here. I don't want to say anything that could get me cut off from the crowd, in inverted commas. The next one is one that you will all know very well. So the Perfectpreneur, if you have any what you would call perfectionist parts, I find this pattern is very alive in people who have grown up with hypercritical parents and or parents who had a very specific culture around what the right way to behave or appear is like. So I'm thinking about the people that are they come from families where appearance and saying the right thing and going to the right schools and having the right pieces of paper are the currency, right? So if you can think about the underpinning fear here is exile or not belonging. A Perfectpreneur has been trained that to be herself is unsafe, and to be the way that people want her to be is the way that she gets accepted and feels a sense of belonging. So she is always afraid that her full expression will lead to exile. She's afraid that being truly heard will cost her connection and or safety. Says things like, if I say the wrong thing, I'll be misunderstood. If I show up in my full voice, I'll be torn down or tuned out. Her nervous system is censorship, like putting herself out there as a full self and being censored equals a threat. So polished performance is the way she protects herself. This is the person who, before she will go live, before she posts, before she speaks from stage, she will have to have things to a standard of impossible perfection, which often means that she never feels ready, so she never actually does. So she gets vulnerability hangovers. She doesn't want to be misunderstood, so she doesn't share at all. Often this comes with a really hypercritical part. And, I should say, none of these parts that we're talking about, or none of these learned limitations, none of them are formed to do us harm. And this is where, when I see posts about just push on through or back yourself or go all in, I'm like, it's great if you're in self energy. But if you've got a really active part trying to run protection and you try and push into them, guess what happens? They actually get bigger and louder and more forceful in your system. These are parts that we need to, and this is why the book about them was called Making Friends with Fear. We need to understand where they're coming from, what they're afraid of, and actually tend to them, not push against them so they rebel and actually become stronger and more embedded as the go-to part that comes online when you go out into business. They will often say, hearing or seeing myself makes me feel physically sick. So definitely would not, I'm recording this in normal clothes. I don't have makeup on. It's just an ordinary day in my office. I've never had a perfectionist part, which you probably can tell by the fact that every single one of my pieces of copy has a spelling mistake in it, because I don't care. I don't feel the need to be perfect. In fact, if you need perfect, I'm not your girl, right? But if I was a Perfectpreneur, I would have to have my lighting precise. I would have to have the right clothing on. I would have to have my background perfect. I haven't even looked at my background. I don't know what's back there. Who knows? Everything would have to be perfect to be able to press record. And even then, she will probably censor herself so much that it will never see the light of day. And this is the other thing. How I'm perceived is far more important than how satisfying my business feels. And that's scary, right? Because guess where that leads you? A business that does not fit you and bleeds you dry energetically. And again, coming back to that power equation, if you think the perfectionist part in you, if you are relating to that, if you say how much does it turn up in a day-to-day in business, and how much power is it taking away from your full self-expression, unfiltered self-expression, you might say right now 80%. So that means that when you can, even if you were tending to this part, if she was still on board, you've got 20% of your full energy there. So you can imagine people have a felt sense of how confident and calm and anchored you are in your own genius. When I say the word magnetic, I'm not talking about some magical equation of perfect colors or even the right copy. I'm talking about the energy that people can feel when they see and feel and hear. It's all of those, all of the tiny little things that our systems pick up of like, oh, she's actually completely calm and centered in her own genius zone, which means I can feel safe around her. And for the people that resonate with you in your unapologetic truth, that shit is like catnip. Is catnip the right word? I don't know. That's the word that came to me. But like, it's irresistible to your soulmate clients. And here's the kicker. It is either actively or mildly repelling to the people that aren't the best fit clients. And that is the thing that's the scariest for a perfectpreneur, because they're like, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to feel like I'm not doing the right thing, because again, they've got a code that they've lived with, which is like, I have to be a particular way for people to like me. Like, that is the rule of reality. So you can imagine how much that gets in the way of unapologetic expression. And that also means that when you find people that resonate with you, when you're in perfectpreneur energy, you have to continue to fulfill that expectation. Like, if you're resonating at, I have to be perfect, and therefore you are energetically attracting people that want perfection, do you know how fucking exhausting that is? Oh my God. One of the most freeing things I decided to do in my business was open like almost every single call or client interaction. Number one, I swear. I don't swear at people. I don't mean to have it be so much of my language, but that is me in my unapologetic self-expression. So if that is not something that you vibe with, you're probably in the wrong room. And second, don't expect perfection. I'm just a messy, magical, raw, real human having a human experience who happens to have an online business. Sometimes I'm going to feel like fully with it and switched on and like vibing, and some days I'm not, and that is okay. So when I gave myself permission to turn up imperfect and also swearing like a trucker, which I really wish wasn't my set point, but it is. What can I say? Then the two things that I was most afraid people would judge me for have now been taken out of the equation, because I've said it up front. So, but if I'm trying to be perfect or very polished, that takes up so much energy for me, because that is not my natural way of being in the world. Like, you should have seen me this morning when I woke up. I wear an eye mask and earplugs to bed. And I woke up this morning, and obviously the way that I had lied, all of my hair was in this massive, big, like sideways, left facing, I don't even know how you describe it. Like, Australians will know this reference, like Yahoo Serious hair or like Einstein hair. And my eye mask was on the opposite ear. And my husband's like, didn't know how lucky I'm. And I'm just like, this is me. Take it or leave it. So anyway, I don't want to keep on adding in stories here because I want to get through these. So we've talked about Dreampreneur, Shinepreneur, Perfectpreneur. Now this one is the Blurpreneur. This is the other one that turns up for me sometimes. So there's a fear underneath this of not belonging, but it's not belonging, and it carries the energy of being a bit of a chameleon. So this fear kind of feels in my body like, if I'm my true self, I may not fit in. When I actually speak to other blurpreneurs, there seems to be this pattern for us that we are actually often quite rebellious or status quo challenging. And so I guess that comes with like being someone that doesn't fit into boxes naturally, I guess. I'm just putting this together as I'm talking. So she will change her face, not her face. That would be weird. Her voice to fit in, and then wonders why she feels lost. So she's learned that love and acceptance are conditional on her molding herself to other people's needs. I can see where this came from in childhood. I was a parentified child, so I didn't really have a space to express my own needs. So of course I don't have I have a nervous system imprint of like fulfilling what other people need from me before I fulfill myself. Her nervous system says belonging equals survival, and being visible as too different is the risk of exile. So for her, this shape-shifting chameleonism is a semblance of safety. I wouldn't say a true sense of safety, because when I do that, when I'm doing it from a self-awareness perspective, I walk away and I think, wow, I really abandoned myself there. Like I really I turn myself into something that's actually not true for me. Now, I will also say the flip side freedom of this pattern is that there is this freedom of being able to kind of almost morph into different versions of yourself. And as long as fear is not driving that, like that actually is quite fun. Like, having lots of different friend groups. For me, part of that is having lots and lots of different careers. Like I used to be a scientist, then I was someone who trained professional speakers. Then I moved into, there's all these different kind of facets of me. If it's from a place of authenticity and realness, there's no problem. But when it's driven by fear, that's when things get sticky. And this is how it can feel. I don't know who I am yet, so I can't go into the marketplace. My voice feels inconsistent or off, or I keep chopping and changing my opinion on things, which is actually another freedom. I change my brand or my bio every few months. Nothing ever feels real to me. I can't get traction. I tell myself I'm multi-passionate, but honestly, I'm just afraid of choosing one direction. Now, again, you can be really multi-passionate. So don't kind of mistake me for saying if you're multi-passionate, there's something wrong, because I do not believe that at all. What I do think is that sometimes when I hear a client say I'm multi-passionate, so I can't pick one thing, what I'm sensing is that is actually a protective mechanism, not something that is real to the whole, human that's in front of me. All right, how many have we done? We've done 4. I'm going to we'll do one more in this episode. So the Comparapreneur. I always have particular people, like either friends or clients, and always very de-identified, obviously, that kind of were the introduction to me. I feel like I've received these in layers of patterns, and I've always been fascinated by human behavior, right? And what makes people tick, and also from a genetic perspective, like how different each individual is. But then patterns of behavior, neurosparkly brains love pattern spotting. And each time another layer has been revealed to me, there has been an introductory, like a person that has shown me the pattern, and then it's made everything else go tick, 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 tick. It's like chiropractic adjustment of my awareness of like, oh, this is that pattern. And I've seen it in this person and this person and this person. So the Comparapreneur always reminds me of a really good friend of mine. And one of her things is always, always, always measuring herself against someone else. So comparisonitis, and comparisonitis, like really, if you have a Comparapreneur part, the very worst thing you can do is get on social media and scroll, because it will 100% of the time show you how everybody else knows more than you, and everybody else has a better life and a better business and more clients and more cash flow than you. And so this Comparapreneur has this external observer in her mind that is always comparing her performance / worth / goodness compared to someone else. So, and how can you ever measure up, right? Because you are an individual, you're a unicorn. So how can you compare unicorn you to unicorn her? It's like comparing an apple to a pineapple. Like they're both delicious in their own right, but an apple is never going to be a pineapple, and pineapple is never going to be an apple. Like that's just not going to happen. Like they're two different fruit, right? And they have different flavors, different preferences. So the core fear underneath this is not measuring up. So it's very much like it is one version of a not good enough core fear. And, in mindset coaching, we would always bring this back down to the 3 core fears, which is fear of not belonging, fear of not being loved, and fear of not being loved, fear of not belonging. Oh, and fear of not being good enough. Oh my God, I just had a brain fart. That's hilarious. So she is afraid that if I'm not as good or polished, as successful as her or him, whoever she's comparing herself to, they, whatever pronoun it is, then she'll be dismissed or unseen or left behind. She has been taught in her family that her worth is conditional. So you are allowed to get feedback to say you are good, you are loved, you're accepted if you act this way. But everything outside of that does not get you access to that. So very conditional. Must be earned, must be proved, must be competing, must be outperforming. Nervous system imprint is love, recognition, safety, and comparison. And measuring herself to external measures of success equals safety. So that is, equals survival, equals her way of keeping herself safe, inverted commas. Slowing down and honoring her own innate self-worth without proving feels dangerous. So there is never a part of a comparapreneur that can say, you know what, I did that. Like, I'm proud of myself. Like, I feel like I stretched into that and I really, really turned up as my full self. They will never, ever, ever celebrate or see what they can do in business, which is such a shame because the flip side of this is such a big strength. The things that a comparapreneur can be saying is, if I can't be the best, why even bother showing up? She's already nailed it. What I observe mostly is that these people have no ability to look inside and really connect to that wise woman and the soul of the business and decide from an internal perspective how to move, how to sell, how to package offers, how to write a website. And so often they're like second-rate copies of someone they admire. And so again, when your soulmate clients are out there and they're looking for you in your full expression, but you're going into the marketplace pretending to or borrowing somebody else's strategy, website, way of doing things, you're just like a copy and paste of someone else's energy, which you are not here to express. And so there's a dissonance, right? So you might want to work with these amazing soulmate clients, but they can't even see you. They can't feel you. They can't perceive you because you've got so much of other people's stuff on top of you that you're hidden in plain sight. She also has a bit of a, nobody will take me seriously until I work harder or study more or get another piece of paper. So they are perpetual paper qualification certification gatherers. The other thing I will say, like I said before, I'm just going to check in on my competitors to see what they're up to, gets on her phone, starts scrolling, and then she's in a freeze state for hours, days, weeks, months. Fill in the time period here. Okay, that is our anti-entrepreneurs for this episode. Come back for part 3. I will tell you about the last 4, and I will also tell you how you can access the quiz and get information on the flip side of your freedom archetype. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If this episode lit a fire in your body, in your business, deep down in your bones, please take a moment to drop a rating and review so more rebels just like you can find us. And don't keep this goodness to yourself. Share it with your disruptive rebel and revolutionary friends who are ready to roar right alongside of you. Until next time, stay wild, stay unapologetic, and stay fucking free.